Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM, channel 141. This is the Insight segment. I'm Harold Fisher. 'Tis the season to shop till you drop, but at what cost? As holiday spending ramps up, American credit card debt has soared beyond the $1 trillion mark, leaving many families paying long after the decorations come down. And tonight, we're talking about your money and how not to spend more than you really have. My guest is known for her practical, no nonsense approach to financial matters. We'll break down debt, savings, and how to avoid those holiday money blunders that can follow you into the next year. We're joined by Michelle Singletary, author and Color of Money, nationally syndicated Washington Post columnist. She's got a new book out, and it's right on time. What to do with your money when crisis hits. Hey, Michelle, good to talk to you again. Good to see you. Happy holidays.
Yes, happy holidays to you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Always good to have you on the program. Let me share a couple of fast facts here. Now, according to Lending Tree, as I mentioned earlier, total U.S. credit card debt is over $1.23 trillion. That's 48% of all accounts carry a balance of just under $7,000. And nearly 80% of holiday shoppers plan to use credit cards this season. Half don't expect to pay off the balance in full when the bill arrives. And when it comes to African Americans, they are the most frequent users of buy now, pay later services, which are heavily marketed during the holiday rush, and they can lead to hidden debt. I know that buy now, pay later service thing has you clutching your pearls.
No, it does. Absolutely. It's a little scary when you see the statistics of people. And I understand money is tight and breaking the payments up into 4 or 6 payments as the buy now, pay later seems affordable. But a lot of things that people are putting on those plans are things that they can go without. I mean, clothes and toys and, shopping for the holidays. They don't seem to realize that it is still debt and that you are really promising money from your next paychecks. If you don't have it this paycheck, what makes you think you're going to have it in the next 4?
Right. Or in some cases, the next 14.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
I do want to start with some big picture stuff. Why do you think we are seeing this spending surge, and why should families be concerned right now? Haven't we also always seen a spending surge around the holiday season?
Well, obviously people are in a generous mood and they want to bless their families with gifts, their kids, their uncles, aunts, nieces. This is the season of giving. And there's nothing wrong with that if you're giving out of your abundance. It is a holiday season where people want to say, you know what, I love you. This is what I want to give for you to show you some of that love. The problem is that we know that many people will charge things that is going to now take them 6 months into the next year before they can pay it off. And that's what concerns me. If you've got the money and you got the cash and you put it on a credit card, you pay it off the next month. I don't care what you buy. Go ahead, do you. But I'm concerned about people who don't have an emergency fund, who aren't adequately funding their retirement plan, don't have a college fund set up for their kids, and doing this kind of spending, particularly on credit cards. We know that almost 50% of people who have credit card debt don't pay it off every month. And that's a good sign, if that's you, that you can't pay that off, that you're in financial trouble. Because if you lose your income, if you're trying to pay the regular bills and now you got all this debt that is compounding, because the average interest rate on a credit card, well, it went down a little bit, but it was about 20%. Now it's about 19% for new cards issued. But it's for many people, the interest rate on their credit cards is about 20%. So if you're not paying that off, that's very expensive money.
Yeah, it really It really, really is. And gosh, 20%. That's, I mean, for every $100, that's an extra $20. And if you don't pay it off, gosh, I can imagine how much trouble you're in if you're talking about $1,000 or
Yeah.
$10,000. It's I'm sure it's hard to manage. You have often spoken about emotional spending and emotional traps
Mhm.
during the holiday. What emotion are we talking about? Are we talking about um, joy? Are we talking about sadness? Are we talking about melancholy? Are we talking about love? What kind of emotions are driving us to spend?
Well, you know that expression, we say it's the thought that counts, but that's not really true. We want to put a price tag on our love. And so particularly this time of year, it happens with people's birthdays and anniversaries and Mother's Day, any celebration where you're supposed to bring a gift, weddings, which is insane. But we want to try to show people by what we buy them the measure of our love, but you can't measure love that way. I would encourage people to read How the Grinch Stole Christmas every time this year. And we talk about people being Grinch, but Grinch was reformed by the end of that story. And what he realized, there were two important things in that story, that the gifts don't make the holiday. That if you got nothing, if you just showed up and be present in people's lives, even if you don't bring presents, that you can still show them their love. But the second part of that story is that he brought the gifts back. So it's okay to give. But again, you give out of your extra. And what happens is you feel like, because someone, you show up and you don't have a gift, and you look at the face and they go like, where's my gift? And so
Mhm.
we give sometimes out of guilt. We feel like certain presents have to cost a certain amount. I like this example. My son, who's just a wonderful human being, he is the to me the epitome of how you receive a gift. If you gave my son a rock and it still had the dirt on it, he would say to you, "Oh my, this is the best rock I've ever gotten." And I think that's how we ought to be as givers. Like whatever we get, be gracious about it, and hopefully that will relieve other people, the givers, from feeling like they have to spend money that they don't have.
How old is your son?
He's 27 now, and he's still like that. I mean, he's so great. He's just such a grateful human being. And he just, and ironically, not ironically, but his love language is giving. And so, he used to just pepper me with questions. Mom, what did you like as a little kid? What's your favorite color? He would always try to figure out what the best gift for me. And I would discourage it because I'm not a giver. I don't think that measures how you love is. So I'm not the best person when it comes to giving presents. And I would just discourage him. And I'd say, son, it doesn't matter. You just give me anything. And he would just look so dejected because that's his
Mhm.
love language. And so I finally decided that I didn't want to do that to him. And so I give him lists now, like these are things that I need, like lotion and things like that. Nothing too expensive. And that really makes him happy because then he can give me what he thinks that I want. And so that's the other side of giving. I've been writing several columns lately in the Washington Post about how to receive a gift, how to give a gift. That we have these gift wish lists now, and people put all kinds of expensive stuff on there, like stuff they would not buy for themselves. I am not buying you no $1,000 purse. I mean, it's like I'm in your dreams.
No.
But we do that for all kinds of gift lists. We do that when people do wedding registries. I mean, it's just crazy stuff you expect your friends and family without really thinking about, can they really afford this kind of stuff? And it happens around the holidays, and we encourage our kids to give lists. Like when we did ask our kids, so give us a list for Santa. And we looked at their list and I said, Santa ain't getting you this. So you better go back and rewrite this list. and,
Right,
and I
exactly.
think you have to live your financial truth all year, not just during the holidays, but all year. Set a budget first. I can only spend 100. I can only spend 200. And then you fit the people within the list. And if that means that people getting $10 gifts, well, they get a $10 gift. And I just think we put so much pressure on ourselves this time of year. And if that's you, if you're putting pressure on people, stop it. If you're an emotional shopper, stay out of the store, stay offline. And the thing that is the most precious to most of us is time, right? That's so precious and priceless. And I think I would rather spend more time with my family and friends than having them spend time shopping for something that I might not like, I'm not going to use, I don't need.
Yeah. Well, in keeping with the theme, it's the thought that counts. So if I was in Bloomingdale's or Neiman's this past weekend, and I was like, gosh, I wonder how Michelle is doing. And then I just have to call you and say, I was thinking about you while I was shopping. And that's all you
I
got.
would love that. And if you bought me something from Neiman's, I'd be like, how much did he spend on this?
Right.
I would be like, can he afford this?
Right.
I'm that person. My husband, it's very difficult for him to shop for me because he knows the first thing I'm going, how much did you spend on this?
Mhm.
And he and we just really have a great agreement. We really don't spend much on each other because there's really not much that we need. And that I would rather he's just such a great guy. I love my husband. He's such a great guy. And just spending time talking to him, watching a movie with him, try to get him to rub my feet. If he can do more foot rubs, he don't have to buy me nothing for the rest of my life. He give me a rub every day.
It,
Uh,
it, I mean, listen, that's a whole thing and I think that goes back to the giving of your time. Um, whether the foot rub, back rub, arm lotion, what have you, and like you said with your son, look, nobody wants to be ashy on Christmas Day, so so you get a little lotion and put a bow on it, and know that it is given with love. But what do you believe is the number one holiday money mistake that people make every single year?
I think shopping without a plan and a budget. I think that's the number one. We write a list of everybody we have to buy for, and then we go shopping. I think that's the number one mistake people make. You should always have a plan for all of your money, holiday shopping, retirement, emergency fund. You need to start there first. And the reason why is because they're not watching their numbers. They're not looking at their budget. They're not looking at how much they spend for their household. They if you ask most people, 2 months ago, how much did you spend on your credit card? They probably couldn't tell you.
Mhm.
And then really go back a couple months and they couldn't even tell you what they bought on it. And so it's just not being aware of your financial situation and going forth and shopping. And then we get into the stores and we do get emotional. And the stores know how to play in that. The smells, the look, everything was so pretty, and the music, and all these sale signs, which I think is just
The so-called sales.
so-called sales. That's exactly right. And then we think we're getting a bargain. And so I just encourage people, and I hate to, people say I'm this Grinch, although, like I said, Grinch was reformed, so I don't actually see the Grinch as a negative. But I just want people to have financial freedom. I want them to have financial peace going into the new year. And I don't see that for a lot of people because they are shopping so much.
Mhm.
And that concerns me, particularly with the economy that we have. We're still battling inflation. We still, lots of people are losing their jobs. And if it's not impacting you, it might impact somebody in your family. And if you are overwhelmed, then you don't have the resources to help people in your family when they lose their job. And so that is my concern, that people are not, they're so intent on spending and consuming without taking pause to look at how their financial situation is and really that of the people around them.
Yeah. Uh, Michelle, hang with us. We are going to take a really quick break. We want to remind people that you can hear this in every edition of the Daily Drum Insight segment via podcast on WHUR.com. The original Quiet Storm with Raheem Devon is coming up next on WHUR-FM. This conversation continues on Sirius XM channel 141 in just a few seconds. Welcome back to the Daily Drum on Sirius XM channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We continue our conversation about how to avoid those holiday money blunders that can follow you into the new year. My guest is Michelle Singletary, author and Color of Money, nationally syndicated Washington Post columnist. Her latest book, What to Do with Your Money When Crisis Hits. You know, one thing, and I think you and I have had this conversation before, but when you have, perhaps extended family, particularly young people, what my mother did, and this is so helpful, I think. It's depending on the age of the young person. If it's a niece or a nephew, and you only have for one particular niece or nephew a budget of $40 or $50, let's say $50. My mother used to say, well, just give them a little crisp green handshake and hug, because young people appreciate money, dirty rocks notwithstanding, but they do. I know my nephew, who is at Morehouse, whenever I see him and I give him a little crisp green handshake, and he gives me that
Yeah.
and that way young people appreciate it. You stay within your budget, because when you give them something crisp and green, whatever they're going to appreciate that more than something that you're not sure whether or not they like, or, as you suggested, even for adults, that you can use.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. It sounds a little transactional. So and my kids are a little different. They actually like gifts as opposed to cash. They like the idea that you've thought about something. Like my oldest is really into puzzles. And if you find a really interesting puzzle, she loves that. My youngest is a teacher for Prince George's County school system. And so for her, you buy her anything for her classroom, and she is like hugs all day, every day. And so I think it depends on the person. If it's somebody who maybe like a student, like you said, who could really use some money to buy books, then yeah, that's a perfect gift, right? But if it's someone else that you kind of know how they are and they communicated, you've seen them, like my son is into reading. He loves games. Oh my gosh. If you find an interesting game, he is just the happiest ever because he loves games. And so I think a little bit about the person, and you can give to their love language, right? And so I think that's the message, right? Just sort of know people, and you get to know them by talking to them, spending time with them. So if a student is sort of struggling, and they're, maybe even if they're on a scholarship, they still need money for things like that, then I think that's a great gift. But if you have other people who have issues, like my godmother, who has since passed away, she loved taking pictures. So this is back when you actually had cameras and film. And so every holiday I would give her like a whole bunch of film and stock paper to print her pictures. And she just loved it because it was expensive. And so that was just such a great gift for her, because I knew that she was going to use it. And I think that, that's sort of one of the ideas. I should say idea, but the one thing about gifts is that you're really trying to communicate to the person, I know you a little bit, and I think you might like this, right? And I think that's why people appreciate it when people give thought into the gift.
Well, I agree. What my only issue with that is, you'd be surprised just how much people who love you really don't pay much attention to you.
That is true too. I am not, I mean, I'm not that person. I know people, and I totally get it. I miss the mark a lot because I just and that's mostly because I'm not a shopper. And so I'm not online looking for stuff. And I'm not in the store because some people, my godmother's a really good gift giver. Like she'll be in the store like, oh, I know Michelle would like this. I'm not
Mhm.
that person, right? I'm just not. And so that's true. So if you're that person, then maybe gift cards and cash does work best for you. But on the receiving end of that, no matter what, if you got someone in your life like me who's a bad gift giver, you still should receive it well.
Yeah.
You don't hand it back to the person like, I don't like this, or like you don't even know me, and you don't you don't say things like that. You be gracious about it. And if it's not something you're going to use, then you can give it away to charity, you can sell it, or re-gift it, re-gift new stuff, y'all. And I think that's especially if you're worried about collecting a whole bunch of stuff that you can't use.
I know how you feel about credit cards, and a lot of people use them during the holidays. Is there any smart way to use them during the holidays?
I think they are very effective when you're buying big ticket items because there's a lot of consumer protections around credit cards. So if you're going to be buying a computer or a TV, something that is very, very expensive, that I would say put it on the credit card for sure, as long as you have the money to pay it off before, by the due date. Because, like, say if it's broken or it's not working, the credit card lender actually helps you in that negotiation with the retailer. It's like if you call them and say this, they delivered this and it doesn't work, they will pause that payment and get to the retailer. It's like, what's up with this? And so there are a lot of consumer protections around when you put stuff on your credit card. Those protections don't flow over to your debit card or cash. And so that's one thing. And then two, as you're charging stuff, just keep an account. I cannot pay this off. But if you cannot pay it off by the due date, then it shouldn't go on the credit card. Hard stop. Hard
Mm.
stop. So if it's $500, you better have that $500 in the bank or know that it's coming to pay it off the next month. And if you can't do that, then you shouldn't be putting it on the credit card.
I need you to add to your money hat your therapy hat.
Yeah, it's a lot of therapy around money. And
Yes.
lots of money problems actually do start with the mind and not the actual cash or the lack thereof. We carry a lot of emotional baggage. We talked about this a little earlier. A lot of emotional baggage in how we spend money, and that is absolutely true. I run a ministry at my church, and most of the time we're talking about a lot of this emotional stuff. Maybe you grew up not having a lot. And so now that you're an adult, you're an overspender because you felt you were so deprived as a child. Or maybe you grew up having a whole lot and you were never told no. And so now you don't tell yourself no, even though you don't have the money to be saying yes to a lot of stuff. I didn't grow up with a lot. My grandmother was very frugal. She always worried about, money. And so she passed that on to me. So I'm a money warrior. And so I don't spend because I'm still dealing with a lot of the childhood stuff, about worrying about making sure the bills get paid. And people might have an opposite reaction. Sometimes when you grow up with deprivation, then you become a hoarder or you spend so much. Because you remember that little kid who didn't get what they wanted for Christmas, and you promised yourself that would never be the case for you or your children. And so I would, this time of year, if you haven't already, I would say if you're struggling with this money thing and you're just not doing well, get some help, get into therapy, y'all. It is not, we sort of, people think therapy like you're crazy. But therapy is a way to give you tools to help you figure out what's going on in your head that causes you to make decisions that are not in your best interests.
And one of the reasons I brought up the therapy hat was, and you are a wife and a mother, your children are adults, but there was a time when they were not. And that for a lot of families who have gone through transitions, loss, where you had to turn around and deal with paying for funerals, or there's been divorce, and a two income household has moved into a single income household, and Christmas looks a lot leaner the one year to the next. But how do you have that conversation with children? Because you're
Yeah.
going to feel guilty
Yeah.
and you don't want to disappoint them. And you know, my listen, my mother again was very, very matter of fact. It was Christmas is going to be a little bit leaner. As you know, things are just not the same as they were last year. Suck it up. Merry Christmas, baby. And we're going to have Christmas dinner at grandma's house. And you just, but in 2025, everybody's being handled with kids' gloves, and folks are being triggered, and everybody's worrying about how do you deal with those people who don't have the thick skin that you and I were used to when we were children?
Yeah. It's a very difficult time, and it definitely goes back to mental health. I think you have to know the person. I'm a very no nonsense, sort of straight fat kind of person. That's how my grandmother was. That's how I am. And
Mhm.
so with our children, we were always, crystal clear about where we stood financially. There was a time they believed in Santa, and even in the time
Right.
they believed in Santa, we were like, okay, Santa had a difficult year this year, so he's not gonna be getting you no Game Boy and all that kind of stuff. Kind of chuckling, and the kids kind of knew it. Listen, we don't underestimate your ability of your kids to understand the financial situation, but you want to do it in an age appropriate way. So for little people, you don't want to scare them. Oh my God, we're gonna be put out. We can't buy you nothing for Christmas. You do not want to say something like that. Don't keep saying, "Oh, we so broke." Just say, "Honey, it's going to be a little bit difficult, so you may not get all that you want, but just know that I love you, and whatever you get, I'm going to try to make sure that you're happy and you're secure." And so you want to kind of balance it with the truth and love, and not scare them, because I don't believe that children should be pulled into adult situations to make them scared. And you want to kind of press upon them, we're going to be put out if I do all of this. You don't scare the little people. And if you are trying to save for something else, you might say, in which we said to our children, listen, we're really trying to save for you to go to college, so if we spend here, we can't spend there. And your kids, the kids who are you should know your kid's temperament, so that you tailor the advice, not the advice, but you tailor the situation to your child. Now, when it comes to adults, that's another whole thing, because adults, they haven't dealt with a whole lot of stuff, and they may not receive it well, but you can't control an adult. So you just say to your extended family, especially if you're in debt, and you should not be spending. To me, it's like, make the budget the bad guy. So just say, my budget will not allow me to do X this year, and I'm so sorry. I know I tend to, give you stuff every year, but this year I'm really trying to concentrate on getting my finances straight. And I think when you say it like that, I don't know too many people who be like, I don't care about your budget, because oftentimes you actually believe them. So you could say, listen, I don't really have it. My budget is really tight. And they might say, girl, my budget tight too. I'm so glad you said that. More often than not, the person will respond, because they will then go, you know what? I'm in the same situation. Don't underestimate the ability of people to understand where you are. And if they don't, because there are some people who will kind of get a little attitude, then that's their problem, not yours. Right?
Yeah.
You have to live your financial truth, because when things hit the fan, they are not going to be able to bail you out. They're not going to pay your rent or your mortgage. They're not going to send your kids to college. They're not going to pay your car note. And so, knowing that, you have to be strong enough to say, I cannot continue to give like I've given in the past. I'm only going to give to the children, or I'm not going to give it all. That's okay too. That's a choice too, not to give it all. You can write a nice card. You can send a letter. I mean, I wouldn't even if you don't have a money for a greeting card, you can sit down and write a letter to someone and just tell them all the things that they've done in your life or how much you appreciate them. I mean, can you imagine in this day and age where we don't really write anything and everything is emoji and 2-sentence words? If you sat down and wrote a letter to someone in your life that says, listen, these are the things that you've done for me, or the things that you said to me that have changed my life in a positive way. When's the last time you got a letter like that in the mail? That's a precious, precious gift.
Well, I think you really hit on something. I've not received a letter, but coming from a writing family, I already know the impact of sitting down and writing your thoughts to somebody that you love or care about, and look at the price of stamps. Golly, you spent all this money on a stamp. That
I mean, what does a stamp cost now? Like, what is it? I can't even remember.
oh gosh,
I got forever stamps, so I can't. I have lost
right. So
track of how much
right,
it costs,
so
but it's less
I
than
don't
40
know.
cents. It's less than 40 cents, I think. What is it? I don't know. I
Oh
should.
no, they're more. No, their stamps are almost 60, 70 cents something.
Is it really? I don't know. I buy forever stamps. So I bought some a couple years ago. That that's what I see. That's the point.
That's an
I
investment.
don't know letters, so I don't know how much a stamp costs right now. But the point is that just getting words of affirmation either written, and if you're not a writer, that's like, ooh, I can't write it, Michelle, then just call someone and say, listen, I can't afford to buy anything this year, but can I just tell you how much I appreciate you? And then be very specific, right? About what that person did for you. And if I can't imagine someone not going, thank you so much. That was just so lovely.
Exactly.
Now there are some people, their love language is gifts, and they want gifts. And if that's the case, then I do think you should speak people's love language, right? So, but you have to still do it within your budget. So perhaps this person is like, I want a gift. Okay, but it's not going to be, it's going to be within my budget. So it might be $10, it might be $15, whatever your budget is. And that's okay too.
Well, and to answer your question, a first class stamp is 78 cents. So that's an investment.
Is it? You said 78 cents.
78 cents. That's getting close to $1.
Wow. I
that?
bought a bunch of forever stamps. So for those who don't know, forever stamps is you buy it at a certain point, and then no matter what the price of stamps goes up, you can still use it. So I still have a bunch of stamps from several years ago. So I didn't even know it was that much. Oh my goodness.
That's right. And look, if things get tight, you can sell your stamps.
I'm going to get my forever stamps.
but I want to talk about after the holidays, because you did touch on something about paying down debt, because after New Year's, then you have, for those who have partners, they're already thinking about Valentine's, but you still have this debt that you've accumulated during the month of December. And then, and this is a real thing, and Sunday brunch with your girlfriends is killing the budget.
Yeah.
It is killing the budget. So even if you don't have a significant other for Valentine's Day, you are still paying. You're still paying in March. Weather's changing, and what do you tell people about how they pay off that debt that they've accumulated, credit card debt that they've accumulated in December?
Yeah, always the key is communication. You need to communicate to people. So when, not so much now because people stop asking me to go out anywhere, but people would ask my husband and I to go someplace, and we're like, ooh, can't do that. We're saving for the college fund. So you actually have to have scripts in yourself. So you have to write down ways to respond to people. Or, you're in a friend group and they take cruises, and you can't afford no cruise. So you have in your script, oh man, I would so love to hang out with you guys, but I really can't do that. My budget blame it on the budget, does not allow me for to do that. But I'll see you guys when you get back, and let's get together and show me all the pictures that you took on the trip. So you write out these scripts, it actually write them out or say them in your head so you be prepared. And whether you're married or single, there is a lot of demand on our money. There's a lot of holidays and birthdays and weddings and opportunities for people, or pressure for people to spend. And let's go back to the question about goals. So if you have a financial goal, it helps you stay on track and be able to say no to a lot of these things. If you know that you are trying to save for your retirement and you've done the math, you know how much you need, then you can with confidence and really a lot of chutzpah say, can't do that. And if you're trying to save to send your kids to college, can't do that. And then try to look forward it's not easy. It may sound easy as I'm telling it, but I'm not a kind of person who likes to spend. So I guess it is easy for me. But one of the ways that I can say no to my children and not feel guilty is that I would look forward. And so I looked forward to the time that they would walk across the stage with their little hat and a tassel, and they have no debt. And so in the moment while they're fussing and, rolling their eyes and threatening to put me in a nursing home, I can say 10 or 15 years, they're going to walk across the stage with no debt, and they're going to turn to me and say, thank you, Mom. Thank you, Dad. And that actually happened. And I just roll forward and I think about that moment. And then I snatch myself back to the present and say, okay, go ahead and roll your eyes. But I know that down the road, you're going to be able to say, I appreciate that you got me. And my husband and I did. We got all 3 of our kids to college with no debt. 2 of my daughters bought a home. We were able to help them with that situation. And so all of those times that we said no, now they are so appreciative. So you may not get your accolades in the present, but in the future, when you act responsible, the accolades will come. And that's how you have to sort of look at things like this. What is long-term better for me and my children and the people in my family? So let's say you're not married, you don't have any children, but you, at some point, somebody in your family might need some financial help. And if you could fast forward, do they need some sort of trinket at Christmas that they're not even going to remember by next year? Or would you have the money to help them pay their rent when they lose their job? What would they be more appreciative of? The fact that you could step in and help them at a very critical financial point, as opposed to something that's in a closet that they can't wear no more, can't fit, or never liked in the first place. And I think that's called being an adult and looking forward, looking past. And it's okay to do stuff in the present, have some fun. I'm not saying don't buy gifts and don't go on vacation, things like that, but you got to do both. And the thing about it is, when you do both, there is just such a joy knowing that you've handled your money in a way that is responsible, that you're living in the present, but you're also thinking about the future.
Yeah, you're right. I think that is such a good feeling to know that if you're not living paycheck to paycheck, when you kind of air quotes forget when the direct deposit is supposed to hit, because you are in a secure financial position. Unfortunately, as you know, that is just not the story for so many people.
Yeah.
With that said, and I think this is a perfect transition to talk about your new book. I'm always excited about anything that you write, and this, as I said, I just think this book is long overdue. What to do with your money when crisis hits. Talk to me about that title, because it's not what do you do when a crisis hits. It's what do you do with your money when a crisis hits.
That's right. It's not a matter of if a crisis will hit, but when. And that's sort of why the book came about. I started writing it during the middle of the pandemic when lots of people lost their job. And a publisher came to me and said, listen, this is always going to happen. How do you help people? And so it's written in an FAQ format, so a frequently asked questions format. And so it's very easy to read. You can skip through different chapters. And so there's chapters on what happens when you have a lot of money. What do you do then? Like you said, there's some people who don't even know when their paycheck hits because they have so much. They don't have to worry about it. They're not living paycheck to paycheck. And it's for people who are living paycheck to paycheck. What happens? What kind of resources are in the community to help you? There's a chapter on fraud. How do you prevent yourself from falling for a scam? There's chapters geared towards young adults. There's a chapter geared towards people who run their own business, because small business owners fall into a lot of financial traps in terms of their money. And so it's a kind of book that you can skip through, give it to somebody else, then get your book back, highlight. It's very easy to read. And it's just chock full of questions that you might ask. I've lost my job. What do I do now? How do I file for unemployment insurance? Or somebody's offering me an investment. What should I do? How do I check it out? Or I'm having trouble talking to my kids about money. What should I say to them? And it sort of covers a lot of those kind of topics, because listen, there's going to be years of plenty and years of famine. And the thing is, you need to know how to handle your money through both of those seasons. In fact, it is during the season of plenty that I have the most difficult time getting people to save and do right with their money, because it's so they're not under pressure or anything, except then when they lose their job or something happens because they didn't save when they had it. Now they're in crisis. So what I want to try to get you is to always be in this mode of it's going to happen. Let me prepare for it, not out of fear, but out of way to prepare for the crisis, because it's going to happen. My grandmother used to say, you need a rainy day fund because it's always going to rain. Right? It is going to rain. Now, no matter if it's going to be a trickle, or is it going to be a monsoon? And you got to be prepared. And I sort of think of this book as, I use this example a lot of times in my ministry. My husband is a golfer. So he has these golf umbrellas, these really sturdy, huge golf umbrellas. Cost a lot of money, right? And I'm like, dude, why you spend all this money on these umbrellas? He said, because when you out there and it starts to rain, you don't want no little flimsy umbrella. You got to have a sturdy umbrella. Now, I'm a dollar store umbrella kind of person, but a dollar store umbrella, you just blow on it and it breaks, right?
Yeah,
but
it's not a quality purchase.
It's not quality. It's not meant to withstand anything. But if you run your financial life like a golf umbrella, now the thing about that is that umbrella is not going to save you from anything. If it's a hurricane, that umbrella is going to break too. But at least when it's a regular storm, it'll stand up to that. And so, we can't prepare ourselves from every catastrophe, but you can get that golf umbrella so that when stuff happens, you are protected. Don't be a dollar store umbrella kind of person with your finances, because that's when you get into trouble. Right.
I have a question for you. This is the final question before we wrap things up, and I've always wanted to ask you this, having spoken to you for many, many years, because you've spoken about if you can buy appliances with cash, you've spoken about never buying a brand new car, etc., etc. But what do you spend money on that you like? What is your thing?
Experiences. We vacation. We love to, my husband and I love to travel. And so the one thing we save up to do is travel. We've gone to Cuba, we've been to Cambodia, Vietnam, Europe. So we love the beach. So we really love seeing the world. And when we travel, we're not just traveling so to hang out I do like the beach, but that's my happy place. But, to shop and things like that. We want to learn about other cultures. And so we spend a lot of time on tours to learn about, the museums and how the culture and the people, and we'll read up on the places that we're going. And so that's what I spend my money on. That's where my happiness is, to be able to explore this beautiful world that we have. And everything else is just by the wayside. Like I'm not a foodie. I'm not going to spend a lot of money on eating out, but that's me. But that's the other thing. That's a really good question in the sense of what brings you joy? And
Right.
I'm okay with you spending money on that. For example, I'm not one of these financial people that says don't buy expensive coffee. Like if Starbucks or I'm not a coffee drinker, but if that's your thing, like that's
Do
good
your
cup
thing.
of Java, do your thing, but then cut out everything else, right? And so you get to pick what's important to you. So travel is important to me, but it might not be to you. So then you spend your money on something else. But
Okay.
you got to be sure that you spend within your means. So we
Yeah.
travel within our means. We save up, we travel. We save up and travel. So one year we might go someplace out of the country, and the next year we go in country so that it's not as expensive. So we balance it so that we're not reckless with our money in terms of travel. And there was a time where we couldn't afford to travel. We didn't really went around the state. We went to go see relatives. We, as we were saving to send the kids to college and so forth, we didn't do what we could do now. And so we're in the season of being able to spend the money that we saved, but there was a time when we weren't. So that's the other thing. Know what financial season you're in. Are you in a winter? Are you in a summer? Are you in a fall? Like what is that season? And then live within that season.
Well, I've got to wrap it up here, but Michelle Singletary, always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you as well.
That is the Daily Drum for this Tuesday, December 16th. I'm Harold Fisher. Good night.